by right to government, is this under the Bureau of Land Management or trees, or what bureau is handled by the government in this?
That's actually a very good question. The Forest Service is under the Department of Agriculture. I would like to move it to the Department of Interior. But when it was created with Teddy Roosevelt, Gifford Pinchot was pushing for it to be under the Department of Agriculture. John Muir, founder of the Sierra Club, pushed it to be under the Department of Interior, which is more for recreation and fisheries, hunting. But Department of Agriculture, it was put that way for the logging. And so luckily things have changed with the ecological management systems that were put in place in a lot of our environmental laws. And it is shifting, but I would like to see a big shift of moving the entire Forest Service from the Department of Agriculture over to the Department of Interior, which is where the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Park Service is. But it currently is under the Department of Agriculture.
Is something similar to this occurring in British Columbia, and what is the Canadian government's response?
Yes, there have been massive demonstrations in the last 5 years. Thousands and thousands of people getting arrested, blockading the logging roads, raising awareness to this issue, and they succeeded in one of the greatest environmental victories, not as good as I would have liked, but it was great. They protected about 1 million acres of the rainforest in British Columbia, and there is still some logging going on, but they did come to a pretty good victory with that, although they're still working on protecting some of the other old growth forest areas. But I think it was about a year or two ago, they signed on to an agreement that protected a significant portion of the British Columbia rainforest. But it's still, it's not, they are still clear-cutting old growth, so it's not totally protected. But it was a lot better than it was 5 years ago. So.
I was watching a show on the national parks, and they were talking about the anger and hostility of a lot of the Alaskans when Jimmy Carter signed in a lot of parkland. Do you feel they feel the same way?
No, I think there's a shift, because I spend a lot of time, a lot of Alaskans are part of the groups that I'm involved in, the Alaska Wilderness League and the Alaska Coalition. But when I go up to Alaska, I go into the logging bars. You know, I go into the oil industry headquarters. Yes, and I let them know my opinions after I get their opinions. First I go in as a journalist, then I say what my opinions are and hope I stay alive. I also go into Prudhoe Bay and ask what the oil workers think, and Fairbanks, and I try to get out of the mainstream as a writer to see what the popular opinion is on all sides, even though obviously I have my own views. And I see a shift, and it's being shown in the polls too. There's a lot of polls that are done in Alaska that you can see a shift towards more environmental policies. The Green Party got about 20% of the vote when they ran for governor, and that was back in 1991. And it's been shifting, so it's very divided. A significant portion, between 35–40%, are strongly environmental, and possibly about half less environmental, and then there's some in between. But there is, it's very polarizing because it's a lot of people's jobs, the logging industry. But the environmental community is really working to end the polarization. They're working with the logging communities, they're working with the oil workers in Prudhoe Bay, and building alliances that, for example, we're not going to get rid of those logging jobs if we protect the old growth forest. There's still going to be logging of second growth areas, and it'll be sustainable logging compared to the clear cutting. When it's gone, the logging jobs, they're gone. And yet if we have a sustainable logging, then there'll still be logging jobs, and we'll have the old growth forest, and we'll have the fishing and tourism. Everyone will be happy. So luckily the environmental community, I think, is doing a great job of building bridges and helping to bring more people over to caring about what we eat and drink. And as David Brower said, there's a lot of an awful big constituency out there of people who like to breathe and people who like to eat. And, we just need to organize.
Do you have a copy of one of your presentations that you could send to our elected officials?